Thank you for listening to this Belly Up Sports Podcast Network product. Some said we go belly up, so we made it our name, and we're still here.
All right, what's going on, guys? My name is Alex, and welcome to the Beyond Half Court podcast, episode number 9. I made sure to check the episode number before we started, unlike last episode where I had to go search it up before we actually started. Hopefully you guys enjoyed the last podcast episode. I had a lot of fun going through that with my friends. So if you guys are interested on maybe having my friends join, maybe recap some games, later on in the season, definitely let me know in the comments below. But yeah, I had a lot of fun recording that episode. Noah's a really funny guy. Everyone was funny on there. And I think it turned out really well. So again, thank you for everyone who watched that one. If you did miss it though, you should go check that out for sure. Also, I have another YouTube channel. If you were unaware, it's Beyond Half Court. It's like Beyond Half Court podcast, but just Beyond Half Court. And it's more short-term content. I just made some, preview videos before the season actually started on the Suns and the Nets. And then I just uploaded, the day I recorded this, I just uploaded Jason Tatum video, and it just kind of went through their first game and why I thought Tatum could possibly be a dark horse MVP candidate. But we'll talk about that a little bit throughout this podcast as well. Follow me on Twitter at BHCT23. If you're watching on YouTube, you guys see it on the screen right here. And I think I'm pointing at this correctly. I think when it comes out, the camera flips. I don't know. It's on the screen. You'll see it. And then, if you're listening to this, if you guys check the description, there's a Linktree link in, the description of the podcast. And you can find my Twitter there. And, make sure to follow me. Definitely trying to stay active on there. Trying to build a community over there. So if you're interested, go follow me over there. But with that out of the way, let's get into our podcast. And we're going to start off, and we're just going to be recapping the games that I personally watched. I don't like talking about games that I didn't watch. And it should also be noted, I have a job, so I'm not able to watch every single game. I try to watch at least 2 games every day, and it just ended up being the nationally televised games that I was able to see, because it's just easier to record those games and then go back and watch them when I get home, because I don't get home until about 6:30 or so, and then I eat dinner, so I don't really start actually watching those games until like 7 o'clock, and I'm also editing videos as well, so yeah, I only really have enough time to watch 2 games, so we'll just talk about the games that I watched. They ended up being, the national TV games, so these are the bigger games, which is fine. Because honestly, I don't really want to be talking about the Kings-Blazers game, even though that was a really good game from the highlights that I saw. Yeah, we're going to start off on Tuesday. We had 2 games. We had the Sixers versus Celtics, and then we had the Lakers versus Warriors. So we're going to start off with the Sixers and Celtics. And again, I actually reviewed this game just in terms of Tatum's perspective on my other channel, so go check that out. But yeah, Tatum had a really good game this He had a really good game to start off, and he honestly didn't even look like he was fatigued at all. I was considering maybe the Celtics starting off a little bit slow because they did make it to the finals, and so you do get that shorter off season compared to others where, if you don't make the playoffs, you obviously get more break in between, last season going into the next. So I thought maybe because of that and then all the drama that they had, maybe they would start off slow, but Tatum just looked like he never left. And I think that's an overall good thing. Something that I point out in my video is that Tatum just looks even stronger. You could see last season that he did put on some muscle. I think he's even stronger now. And you can just tell because PJ Tucker was guarding him a lot of the time, and he was just bowling PJ Tucker the entire game, just getting to wherever he wanted to go. Let's see. Tatum finished off that game with 35 points, 12 rebounds, 4 assists. He shot 13 of 20 from the field, only 2 for 7 from 3, which isn't the greatest. I think that's the sort of, first game mentality. But, if you just take out those threes, I believe that he went 11 for 13 from the field. So 11 for 13 from twos is really freaking good. And I think a lot of that has to do with his improved strength. Jaylen Brown also had a really good game. He had 35 as well, 14 of 24 from the field, 4 for 12 from 3. Again, not the greatest from 3. And then they're both playing, great defense. Grant Williams also had a perfect game. He went 5 for 5 from the field, 3 for 3 from three, finished off with 15 points. Malcolm Brogdon, 6-man. Malcolm Brogdon, I was actually surprised. I thought maybe he would start. But the Celtics actually ended up starting Derek White, which I guess isn't that bad. They're at that point, Malcolm Brogdon and Derek White are both acting as role players, so I think either of them could theoretically start. But Brogdon finished the game with 16 points. He had 4 assists, 7-11 from the field. He had a really solid game to start off, and this is a big reason why I love the Malcolm Brogdon signing, because when you get into that playoffs, at least last season, the Celtics were having to, rely on Peyton Pritchard minutes, and Pritchard is really good. I like Pritchard as a backup guard. He's young, he's still developing, but, with the Celtics kind of wanting to win now, they needed something a little bit better from that backup guard position. And now just like, if Marcus Smart is on the bench, right? Now you can bring in Malcolm Brogdon. He's going to give you some solid defense. He's still going to give you that playmaking. It's kind of weird. I always see him as a good shooter because he had that 50-40-90 season, I believe, with the Bucks. Was it in his rookie season or was it the second year? I forget. But he did have a 50-40-90 season, if you didn't know. So I always see him as a good shooter, but he's never really been able to recreate that. So I wonder if that was just kind of like a fluky season or not. But like, he can provide spacing, which is always a good thing. So yeah, Malcolm Brogdon is going to be such a big piece for, the Celtics, not only in the regular season, but also in the playoffs as well, because now they'll have a little bit of a more established guard coming off the bench, instead of Peyton Pritchard, who did have some really big moments, but, you would obviously rather have more experienced players on the court. At least I personally would. But yeah, the Celtics just played a great game, great game. They were pretty much in control that entire time. There's a, third quarter, James Harden, Tyrese Maxey, in fourth quarter a little bit as well. They were both kind of just going back and forth with the Celtics. It looked like they may be able to pull the Sixers into that game, but it just never really ended up happening. And I think a big part of this has to do with how poorly I thought Joel Embiid played in that first game. He did finish off the game with 26 points, 15 rebounds, 5 assists. He went 9 for 18 from the field, but he did shoot 1 for 6 from 3. And that was the first problem I wanted to point out. I'm pretty sure he missed his first 5 threes, and they were all open. The Celtics were playing the drop defense. That's what they usually do with Horford. Rob Williams isn't on the court, obviously, so that they're playing drop defense, and Embiid had some really good looks, and he just wasn't making them. And he's a good 3-point shooter. I'm not going to say 3-point shooter, but like, I would at least hope that you would shoot, 2 for 6. Obviously, that's just one extra 3, but that's 33%. That's like slightly below league average, I believe. So I don't know, you shoot 1 for 6, but you're missing your first 5. I'm pretty sure he hit the last 3 when it like just didn't even matter. So like, to me, he virtually shot 0 for 5. And they were all open shots. Like, he needs to hit those open shots, in my opinion. It's just unacceptable. And on top of that, I believe it was the third quarter, Embiid just, he had, I don't know if it was 2, he had 3 bad possessions in a row, but I don't know if they all 3 led to turnovers, but I know 2 of them did. So 2 of them, I forget exactly what the plays were, what was going on. But I do know that he was just throwing these lazy passes, and they're easy passes to make, so I can understand why you're kind of being nonchalant about it. But the Celtics have great defense, and they were coming out with a vengeance the entire game. And like, by that point, we're in the third quarter. It's like, you should be knowing what's going on. And he's just throwing these like super slow passes, and Tatum or Brown or Smart, they're on it. They're grabbing that ball, and I'm pretty sure both of those turnovers led to layups on the other side. And shout out to the take foul, the new rule that was implemented to make sure that teams were actually able to do stuff in transition. Because if those turnovers happened, I know for a fact that they just take foul. And I'm so happy these stupid turnovers that teams are making are like actually being punished. Because, just last season, you can make a bad turnover, but then just foul them and then make a stop. And it's like that turnover never, I guess, theoretically happened, even though it did. But like, you don't suffer the consequences of it, because with this new rule, Now, if you do a turnover, you actually have to go back and play defense. And I think, and the Celtics are actually capitalizing on that. But if you go back last season, it's like players would just take foul and then go complain to the refs. Like, to me, that was not an enjoyable experience. So I love that they fixed that. But yeah, Embiid had just like 3 bad possessions in a row. And I watched another Sixers game, and he had yet another terrible game. We'll talk about it when we get to that. But another thing that stood out to me with Embiid was he just seemed really lazy on defense. And, he's always been one of the best defenders in the league. And if I remember correctly, Embiid did say something during the offseason talking about how he wanted to actually like stand out as a defender and possibly like be in that running for Defensive Player of the Year. And he most certainly has a skill for it, but he just did not show it in that first game. He was super slow going for contests. I think Tatum's first shot of the game was a corner 3, and he was open. He was wide open, and Embiid just like didn't even seem to be interested to like go attempt to contest. He eventually got there, but he was so late that it just didn't even matter, and Tatum was able to make it no problem. But there was multiple possessions where Joel Embiid's just able to go contest a shot, and he's just not even interested. Tatum also had the step back as well. And Embiid just like it didn't even seem like he was trying to guard Tatum. Like Tatum got him with the step back, and then he just like wasn't interested in trying to recover. So PJ Tucker, who was like the next closest defender, had to go off his guy and go switch on to Tatum, but Tatum just hits the 3. And again, like they're too late. So you can go contest, but it doesn't really matter. And to me, the effort thing is like, obviously you can have all the skills, you can have the athleticism, you can have the height, you can have the strength, you can have the mobility, but if you don't have the effort, then it just doesn't matter, right? So yeah, I think Embiid definitely needs to step up on that part. I talked about him having 3 bad plays. I know he had those 2 turnovers. I believe he finished off that first game with like 5 or 6 turnovers. Let me actually double check on this. He was really bad with the ball. And the last thing I'd say about Embiid before we move on to that Warriors and Lakers game. Where's his turnovers at? Yeah, he had 6 turnovers and he had 4 fouls. Minus 13 plus minus for that game. Just was not good at all. And the last thing about Embiid was when he was in the post, the Celtics were doing a really like good job on giving him different looks. I think they tried to just let him go at Noah Vonleh or like Al Horford. It just wasn't working. So they decided to send double teams, and throughout the game they were sending doubles from like different directions. And Embiid, he didn't seem like he was expecting double teams, which is just so weird to me. Especially since, like, if you consider yourself an MVP, you should be expecting that sort of attention, right? So it seemed very odd to me. He just wasn't, mentally focused on the defensive end. And offensively, sure, statistically, he put up the points. He had the rebounds. He had 5 assists. I will say in that fourth quarter, he was definitely better with the ball. He didn't score all that much in the fourth, but he was really good with the ball, making good plays, actually keeping the Sixers in the game until it was just over. But you should be expecting certain things to come your way if you're that good of a player. And it just didn't seem like he was really into the game. And it's just so weird to me. It was the first game of the season. Like, you should be like, oh, let's go. It's the first game. We got to get this W. We got to start off the season right. And he just did not look interested at all. So that's really interesting to me. And I felt the same sort of way as in their second game that they ended up playing. But we'll talk about that later. But now let's move on to this Warriors-Lakers game. And man, this is going to turn into a Lakers hate video at this point. The Lakers just did not play well at all. I made a video on my other channel about the Lakers, and I felt that they were just doomed from the start. And I know they hadn't even played a game yet. I don't even think the preseason had actually started yet. But I just feel like in terms of the roster construction and like what they actually have on the court, and even the question marks in terms of their health, I just felt like there's just no reason to believe why these guys can be a good team. Obviously, you look at them on paper and you have LeBron and AD, and you go, hey, these 2 guys are on your team. You have a chance to win it all. But when you also take into account that these guys are now fighting injuries, and so their career, LeBron's getting older. He's he's still really good. He's a top 10 player. I think on my player rankings, he's actually a top 5 player. I had him at number 4. Um, just below Curry, above Luka, in my opinion, going into the season. That's where I had LeBron. Still a very good player, but obviously you have questions about his health at this point. He's not playing, nearly all, 82 games or even like 70 games, like he's not even playing up to that point. He's playing like 50 to 60 games. So, injuries are starting to become a problem for LeBron, but he's still performing really well. But with AD, the injuries are still there. And on top of that, unlike LeBron, he's not performing how he really should be performing. Now, in this game against Warriors, AD did have a really good game. He had 27 points, shot 10 for 22 from the field, only had 6 rebounds. I would like to see him get some more rebounds. Also had 4 steals and 1 block, so that was really good for them as well. But just overall, the flaws of this team are just so apparent, especially against this Warriors team. The Warriors were just daring Westbrook to shoot, and he actually, statistically, again, had a decent game. He had 19 points, 11 rebounds, shot 7 for 12 from field, 1 for 3 from 3. That's all fine and dandy, but then let's look at the other players on this team who contributed. We had Patrick Beverley. He shot 1 for 5 from 3. He only shot 5 threes, so that's all he attempted. He went 1 for 5. Lonnie Walker, 0 for 3 from 3. 2 for 7 from the field. He had 5 points. Matt Ryan, that guy that they just signed. Is he a rookie? I'm pretty sure he's a rookie. But he's a 3-point shooter. He went 1 for 3. Only had 3 points that game. Who else here? Juan Toscano-Anderson. He went 0 for 3 from 3. Austin Reeves, he's supposed to be a good 3-point shooter. He went 0 for 2. Kendrick Nunn, he went 3 for 6. Kendrick Nunn had a good first game. He had 13 points by the end of it. But there's too many of these role player guys that are just not hitting their threes. And even looking at their stars, LeBron shot 10 threes. He only made 3 of them. And AD shot 3 and he didn't make any. So 3-point shooting is a problem. And, at the end of the game, LeBron even said, hey, we are not a team constructed of shooters. We don't have lasers on our team. We can't have, there's no consistency. Now, on top of the consistency, there's not a lot of players on here that are capable of making the threes, just based off what we've seen through their entire careers. So the above average rate, at best, the players that they ended up signing, like Lonnie Walker, Patrick Beverley, these guys are average 3-point shooters. You can make the argument to me that Patrick Beverley is an above average 3-point shooter because in his career, he shot 38%, but last year he shot 33%. So I personally feel like he's kind of going on that down end. Kind of degressing a little bit there. But on top of the shooting, I also feel like their defense was really bad in this game. And obviously you play against the Warriors, they're the reigning champs, so it's kind of hard to judge their defense against one of the best teams. But if you just look at the roster construction, in my opinion, their only defenders are Patrick Beverley, Anthony Davis. I would give you Lonnie Walker. I would give you that. I'm not going to argue. And then after that, you have Juan Toscano-Anderson. And that's 4 guys. And, even if you think Anthony Davis can be a Defensive Player of the Year candidate, and if you think Patrick Beverley is an All-NBA caliber guy, everyone else on this team, there's no, those are your best defenders. And then after that, you could have an average defender with LeBron if he's really locked in. Again, with him, it's an effort thing. It's not, is he capable of playing good defense? Because he is. Because if you look back in 2019, he was not a defender at all. And then once he actually had, a good team around him in 2020, he became a really good defender that year, or at least a really improved defender compared to the season prior. So I think for him, it's an effort thing. And he was showing some effort, so I would give you him as a defender as well. But then after that, there's absolutely no defenders on this team. There's just not, and it's a guard heavy lineup at this point. You have Patrick Beverley. I know Dennis Schroeder didn't play because he has that thumb injury. Lonnie Walker, Patrick Beverley, Austin Reeves, Matt Ryan. And Matt Ryan's 6'7", small forward. So I wouldn't count him as a guard, but they have 4 or 5 guards here. And one of them is going to have to play small forward. and that's not good, especially in the West. The West has some pretty big teams. You have Michael Porter, Aaron Gordon out in Denver, Brandon Ingram. There's big forwards in the West. Kawhi, Paul George. Like, there's some big forwards in the West, and they're gonna have to guard them, and they're gonna have to rely on Lonnie Walker or Patrick Beverley to guard them. And again, like, they're good defenders, but at a certain point, like, you're going to be outmanned. Like, Paul George is going to be able to just shoot over you. No matter how good of a defender you are, offense can always just be good defense, even if the defense is great. So you can only do so much, and I just don't feel like overall, the Lakers roster is constructed very well for defense, and this is kind of just what I saw from the Warriors. On the Warriors side, Klay Thompson and Draymond didn't play all too much. Klay Thompson played 20 minutes. Draymond Green played 25. They're still trying to get into the swing of things. Steph Curry had a really good game. He had 33 points, 6 rebounds, 7 assists, shot 10 for 22 from the field, 4 for 13 from 3. Jordan Poole didn't really have a great efficient game, but he had 12 points. Wiggins was really good. He had 20 points, 4 for 7 from 3. Klay Thompson also had a solid game. He had 18 points. And then even like the backups had a really good game as well. Dante DiVincenzo, James Wiseman, JaMychal Green, they all contributed 8 points off the bench on top of Jordan Poole's 12. And Moses Moody also had 5 points as well in the 8 minutes that he played. So Warriors looked really good, despite, some other players not, playing to their absolute, I guess, not to their peak, but they didn't play all that much, right? So you would think that was a game that the Lakers would be able to win, but they really just weren't close at all, and their flaws were just so apparent in that game. It was honestly an ugly game to watch. It was so ugly. Well, let me see. What was it? I know I've already went through all the Lakers players in terms of their shooting. They went 10 for 40 from 3. 25%. Now, do I think they're going to be shooting 10 for 40 every game? Probably not. Maybe they'll, make a couple more threes, but it's not going to, it's still the amount, even if they shoot if they make 3 more threes, I do not think that's going to be a big enough difference. Like, even if they shoot 34% from 3, I don't know if that's enough, because again, I don't think they have enough defense to counteract their lack of shooting. That, when you look back at their bubble championship, they weren't the greatest shooting team, but they also were one of the best defenses in the league. So I felt like that kind of made up for the lack of shooting, because they're able to keep themselves in the game because of defense. But if you can't make threes, so you're not scoring that much, and you can't stop the other team after you miss a 3, then you're just going to lose the game every time. Like, that's just what the league is at this point. And that was what was happening a lot against the Warriors. They would miss a 3, and the Warriors would just run up the court, make a layup, or, shoot a transition 3 and make it. So it was over for them. It was over. I am not personally a Lakers fan for this season. I am a LeBron fan. I do feel bad for him having to go through all of this, but it's what he has to. This is kind of what he wanted to get into, right? He kind of asked for Westbrook, and I also blame the front office for that roster construction as well. It's just not good. It's just not good at all. But we'll move on. Those were the 2 games that I watched on Tuesday. On Wednesday, I watched the Knicks and Memphis game, and it was a really fun game. It went into OT. Ja Morant had a good game. He ended up with 34 points. Desmond Bane ended up getting injured towards the end, so he didn't really play all that much. But the Memphis Grizzlies still came up on top, 115 to 112. They ended up winning an OT by 3. Tyus Jones also had a really good game off the bench. He ended up hitting that clutch shot at the end as well, to pretty much, win that game for the Grizzlies in OT. And I think he was off. He literally just came off the bench as well, and he just came in and he was like, "I'm just gonna shoot." There's no hesitancy in that. So shout out to Tyus Jones. Conchar had a good game. He had 12 points. Aldama, I had never heard of Aldama before. Is he a rookie? I believe he's a rookie. Yeah, so he's a rookie. Santi Aldama, he's a 6'11" power forward, and he had a really good game for them. I actually liked what I saw from him. He had 18 points, 11 rebounds, 7 for 14 from the field, 3 for 8. If there's a guy I could compare him to in terms of like what he looked like on the court. He kind of looked like Pokuševski on the OKC Thunder, but he kind of looked like what Poku should really be, which was a guy who like sitting in the corner, has a really good jump shot, able to make threes, but having that length, he's able to also grab 11 rebounds as well, and be a solid defender. And that's what I saw from Aldama. So I don't know how the Grizzlies do it, but they keep finding these forwards. Dylan Brooks was actually injured in this game, so that's why Aldama, I believe, got the start. And Aldama definitely, showed me that he can be coming off that bench and be a really good guy to contribute for them. On the Knicks end, this was Jalen Brunson's first game. It didn't start off all too well because he got into foul trouble early. He just could not guard Ja Morant. So he got it. I think he got 2 fouls in like the first 4 minutes or so. So he was pretty much out for that first quarter, but he had a really good game. He had 15 points, 9 assists, 6 rebounds, and I don't think he committed a turnover either. Yeah, he didn't. So really good game from him. Julius Randle also had a really good game. He had 24 points, 11 rebounds, 6 assists. He did end up fouling out, I believe, in OT or late in the fourth quarter, which I think ultimately is why the Knicks ended up losing that game. Cam Reddish also had an unbelievable game. He ended up with 22 points off the bench, 3 for 6 from 3, 9 for 15 from the field. And Isaiah Hartenstein, former Clippers legend, had 16 points, 8 rebounds, 4 assists. And honestly, I was having conversations with my friends about the Clippers, and I actually thought Hartenstein was still on the Clippers. So I was talking about, he's going to be a really good backup big for them. And then when I watched this game, I was like, wait, he's on the Knicks? And I really like Hartenstein's game. I really do. Really big energy guy, solid defender. Honestly, he had grabbed 8 rebounds as well off the bench. So he did play 40 minutes in that game. So obviously, he's going to grab 8 rebounds in 4 minutes. That makes sense. But the 4 assists as well is impressive to me as well. Just an overall really good game from him. What's his name? Emmanuel. I always want to call him like Isaiah Quickly. I don't know why. Emmanuel Quickly did not have a good game at all. He shot 0 for 6 from the field. Didn't really play all that much either. He only played 17 minutes. Derrick Rose only played 12 minutes. Had 4 points on 2 of 8 shooting. And Ja Morant was kind of just the key to this game. He was just on point all game. He had 9 assists. Obviously, I think I had said that before. Did have 6 turnovers, but he was just a big reason on why the Grizzlies were really in this game to begin with. Because again, Desmond Bane went out, and he was just playmaking his ass off. Like, he was just finding all these open shooters in the corner. There's really nothing the Knicks could have done there. Just an overall really good game from Ja Morant. And he ended up having an even better second game, which I didn't actually end up watching, but he had 49 points as well. Ja Morant, man, he's a different animal. He's a different animal. I really like Ja Morant. Next game that I watched on Wednesday night was the Mavericks and Suns game. And man, the Mavericks should have won this game. They pretty much had this game in the bag the entire game. And they let Damian Lee at the end of the game kind of seal it off for them. Damian Lee ended up with this game with 11 points. And I believe he scored all 11 points in the fourth quarter. I could be wrong about that. Even if it's not 11, maybe it's like 9 or 10. He scored majority of his points in the fourth quarter. And the Suns actually benched Chris Paul for Damian Lee. So the Mavericks really shouldn't have lost this game at all. Obviously, Damian Lee had 11 points off the bench. He played really well for them in that fourth quarter. Devin Booker, 10 for 20 from the field. He had 28 points, 9 assists. Chris Paul didn't really play all too well. He had 6 points. Did have 9 assists, though. DeAndre Ayton had 18 and 10. Good game from him. Cam Johnson, 15. Mikal Bridges, 13 points. So an all-around good game for the Suns. Obviously, wish Chris Paul played a little bit better. But they won this game. They really shouldn't have. Now looking over at the Mavs, Luka Doncic had a Luka game. He had 35 points, 9 rebounds, 6 assists. Spencer Dinwiddie has ended up getting the start now because Jalen Brunson isn't there. He played really well, hit some really big baskets for the Mavs. Before the Suns actually ended up closing out this game. It just seemed like when the Mavs really needed a bucket, Spencer Dinwiddie was like hitting a 3 or driving past like Chris Paul or Devin Booker and just scoring a layup. But he played really well. Reggie Bullock had 10 points, 3 for 5 from 3. And Christian Wood, the new pickup, the, I guess, replacement, quote unquote, replacement for Jalen Brunson. He ended up with 25 points, 4 for 7 from 3. He had 8 rebounds as well. And I actually don't think he's much of a defender. I didn't think he was that great of a defender last season, but definitely showed signs of improvement. Don't know if that's just like him being put into a better system, or if it's just more of like a motivation thing because he's coming off the bench trying to, start. But either way, I love to see that from Christian Wood. He had an explosive third quarter. He just could not miss at all. And then for some reason, Jason Kidd in that fourth quarter, he just didn't put Christian Wood in. And honestly, I think that's a big reason why the Mavs didn't end up winning. Christian Wood was explosive again in that third quarter. And when the Mavs really desperately needed offense, they didn't put him out on the court. He was just sitting on the bench. So that was a little bit disappointing. I think after a couple more games, I think Christian Wood should or will get his respect from, Jason Kidd. I think it's more of like a trust thing. Again, it's their first game. So maybe Jason Kidd wanted to go with something a little bit, more certain. He wanted to go with players he's more familiar with, know how to, perform in close situations like that game was, but just didn't end up working out for them. But I think not having Christian Wood in that game was a big reason for the Mavs not winning it there. And then Damian Lee just taking over as well. Obviously, you hate to see that if you're a Mavericks fan. Damian Lee just always seems to find his way into these clutch situations, which is just so funny to me because in the beginning of the Warriors season last season, he was actually playing really well. And it just seemed like progressively throughout the season, he just didn't know how to play basketball. And then didn't really play all that much in the playoffs. So thought that was kind of just the direction we were going into. But here he is making clutch shots in the fourth quarter and miraculously leading the Suns over the Mavs. So those were the two games that I watched on Wednesday, the Grizzlies, Knicks, and then Mavs Suns. Now we're on to Thursday. And we have the Bucks and 76ers. Bucks didn't have Chris Middleton. They also didn't have Pat Connaughton. So I don't want to put too much, focus onto this game all too much. The Bucks did end up winning this game by 2. Really low scoring game. 90-88 was the final score. Giannis played really well. He had 21 points, 13 rebounds, 9 assists. Or 9 assists? No, sorry, 8 assists. And 9 for 16 from the field. He actually started this game, I believe, like 6 for 6 or 7 for 7 from the field. He just really couldn't miss. He hit this 1-3, and then the next possession came down the court, did like a couple dribble moves on Embiid, and hit this mid-range shot that was really nice. His shot is just looking better and better. So I hope he can continue to improve on that. Brook Lopez had a big game as well. He had 17 points. Drew Holiday was absolutely awful on the offensive end. He went 2 for 15 from the field, 0 for 6 from 3-point. Did have 8 assists. He was doing a really good job playmaking. Only 1 turnover as well, but he really has to improve on that offensive end, especially since Middleton's going to be out with that wrist surgery. Did he have wrist surgery? I know he has a wrist injury. I don't know if he got surgery, though. But he's going to be out, I believe, for like 2 or 3 weeks. So they're going to need Drew Holiday to not be, shooting 2 for 15 from the field. Bobby Portis also had a double-double off the bench. He went 11 points, 10 rebounds. Again, it was a low-scoring game. Not a lot of people performed very well on the offensive end outside of the stars. But again, we go back to the Sixers. Embiid just didn't. He had 15 points, 12 rebounds, 6 for 21 from the field. Had an even worse statistic output on the offensive end. And again, the lack of defensive effort is just there. You just saw it again in that second game. It's really disappointing. It was so disappointing, in fact, that Sixers fans were booing Embiid because he was playing so bad. I hope Embiid can actually start to figure it out. But he's getting really lucky. Again, they ended up losing this game. They're 0-2 now to start off. But James Harden is playing the best we've seen in the past 2 years. He had 31 points in this game, a near triple double. He had 9 assists, 8 rebounds. Didn't shoot all too well from 3, but he went 13 for 24 from the field. And he also had 4 free throws as well. And even Tyrese Maxey, he had a good game as well. He had 15 points. But, Embiid has to play better. If Embiid is able to perform, anywhere close to his MVP status, they would have won that game. Like, they only scored 88 points, and they have so much offensive weapons on this team that I'm just surprised that he's not taking advantage of how much. This is the most talented team I think Embiid has had in quite some time. I think that the next comparable team you could have is, maybe when Jimmy Butler was on the team, or when that one year when they had all those shooters like Marco Bellinelli or Ersan Ilyasova. That was another really talented team that they had, but this is arguably their most talented team that the process Sixers have had, and Embiid is just not taking advantage right now, and I really think he needs to. Also, Montrezl Harrell was a big signing for them, and he really hasn't played all too well. In that first game, he got some playing time, was a complete negative, and then in the second game, he only played 3 minutes. So, not too much for Montrezl Harrell, unfortunately, and I actually thought he'd be pretty big. Because I thought it'd be nice, at least for the regular season. You can give Embiid some more rest in the regular season and still have Montrez, putting out on, with some scoring and some energy, but that's just not happening. Because when he was on the court, he wasn't doing it, and then he's just not on the court in the second game because of how bad he was. Sixers are weird right now, but hopefully they can start figuring that out. Going on to the Clippers and Lakers, this was another weird game as well. Kawhi Leonard did play in this game, but he came off the bench, played 21 minutes. He did play pretty well, though. He had 14 points, shot 6 for 12 from the field, had 7 rebounds, 2 assists. John Wall was also playing in this game as well. He had 15 points, 4 rebounds, 3 assists, 7 for 15 from the field. Did shoot 0 for 4 from 3. But John Wall looked really good. He looked aggressive. He didn't look scared to attack the basket. Definitely a couple, times where he scored a layup and he was just talking his shit up the court. So, love seeing John Wall back out there being comfortable. Luke Kennard played really well as well. Zubac had an incredible game. He had 14 points, 7 rebounds, which I believe his 17 rebounds is a career high for him. Did that on Anthony Davis, by the way. And Paul George didn't play all too well. He only had 15 points. It was kind of like an all-around game for the Clippers. They just had guys who were scoring 15 points. But they still ended up winning this game against the Lakers because, again, the Lakers can't shoot the ball. Now, in this game, I will give the Lakers some credit here. Defensively, they look a whole lot better. And you can just see, just based off the box scores, Paul George only had 15 points. No one, went over 20 points. So I think that's an overall good thing for the Lakers. And the Clippers just barely cracked 100 points. I think they ended the game with 102 or 103. Yeah, they had 103 points. Lakers only lost by 6. And, if the Lakers overall, they went, oh my God, I actually didn't think it was this bad. They went 9 for 45 from 3, so it was even worse than the first game. So again, if you make 3 more threes, you win this game. Just 3 more. You shot 45 threes. All we're asking you to do is make 12. And they couldn't. But they did look really good on the defensive end. Westbrook had 3 possessions in that fourth quarter on Kawhi, and he was just stealing the ball. The Clippers were trying to post up Kawhi up high with Westbrook on him, and Westbrook was just fronting him and stealing the ball. It literally happened 2 times in a row, and then Westbrook had another play where he actually got posted up, but I think he poked the ball away. So Westbrook played some really good defense. He didn't make a single shot in that game. It should also be noted that he wasn't the only one who didn't make a single shot in that game. I believe Patrick Beverley was the only guy to score a bucket out of their 3 guards there. Patrick Beverley, he went 1 for 7 from the field. Westbrook went 0 for 11, and Kendrick Nunn went 0 for 7. So those 3 guys combined, that's 1 for 29 or something. 18 out of 25, I think. One of 25 shooting from your 3 guards is kind of bad. And again, like, these are timely shots. Reggie Miller would not shut up about this, about the Lakers, having to make timely shots. And I didn't necessarily like agree with that, because it's like, I understand what he means by timely. Like, when you're in a drought and you need to make a three and now you're open and you have an open, like if the Lakers had an open three, it's like, okay, you guys haven't scored, you need to make the shot, and you make it. That's a timely three. I get that. But it's not going to happen. And even if it happens, it doesn't guarantee that it's going to happen the next time around. And that's what the Lakers need. They need more consistent shooting. It's not consistent. One game they could get that, the timely threes, but then the next game they couldn't. So like, I understand what Reggie Miller means, but you can't have timely threes if it's going to be inconsistent, because that's not timely. You need timely threes consistently. So that was just a big problem for the Lakers. And again, they played really good defense. Multiple possessions of just absolutely, boxing people out, making sure they don't get to the rim so easily. And they just couldn't close it out because they couldn't hit their shots. And it's really unfortunate. And again, it's why I don't really believe in the Lakers this season. I don't think they'll make the playoffs. I think they will be like the 9 seed. They will have a chance to compete, but I do not think ultimately that they will make it out alive. And to finish it off, we have 2 more games to go over. We have the Nuggets Warriors, and then we have the Celtics Heat. Now, I'm going to be honest with you. I don't know what it is about the Heat, but the Heat just bore me. I cannot watch the Heat. And I was paying attention to this game, but I was not interested at all. Main reason was because the Heat kind of were undermanned in a way. Years 07, is that his last name? He wasn't playing, so they had this guy named Haywood Highsmith playing the center position. He's 6'7". He came off the bench. I honestly couldn't believe it. He only ended up playing 4 minutes. But that wasn't very good of them for the Heat. The Heat are just lacking a lot of size. They really miss PJ Tucker. Caleb, is it Caleb or is it Cody? Caleb, yep. Okay, I got it right. Caleb Martin is playing that power forward position now in place of PJ Tucker, and he is just not strong enough. There was a possession, I believe, where Caleb Martin was like trying to post up on Marcus Smart, and Marcus Smart is a good defender, but Caleb was not going anywhere at all. So like, if Caleb Martin's going to be matched up with power forwards, it's just not going to end well. So you're going to have to probably have Jimmy Butler at that power forward position, which just is not optimal in my opinion. So I think the Heat definitely need to get some more size. Bam Adebayo actually had a really good game. He had 9 points, 8 rebounds, 5 assists. And Tyler Hero also had a great game as well. He had 25 points. Gabe Vincent had 17. Lowry had a really bad first game, but he ended up coming back with 17 points in this one against the Celtics. And another thing I wanted to say about the Heat that is Jimmy Butler. I love Jimmy Butler. I think he's personally in the top 10 NBA players. I would have him at 10. But he relaxes in the regular season, and that's what it is. And again, it's not a big deal because he did it last season, and the Heat ended up getting the 1st seed. But I also think the Heat had more depth last season. I think they've lost some depth on this team. Again, they're lacking a lot of size. So I think Jimmy Butler really shouldn't be relaxing at this point. They're 0-2 now. Granted, it's been against some really good teams, but and it was a close game. The Heat lost by 7 points. It was a close game, but Jimmy Butler only had 18 points in this one. Had 7 rebounds, 5 assists, shot it really well, 9 for 17. But when you get to the playoffs, Jimmy Butler is always there. But in the regular season, he just kind of chills out, and it's kind of just weird to me. It's like a form of load managing, I guess, but I don't know. I think the Heat need a little bit more out of Jimmy, especially if they're lacking that size. They need him to be a little bit more aggressive, not so, passive, looking for, passing first. Obviously, he only had 5 assists, but you can still look for the pass and not get a lot of assist totals. So, I would like Butler to be a little bit more aggressive as well. Bam looked really aggressive. He only had 19 points, but he looked really good in that game. He was attacking Al Horford. I thought he did a really good job. Tatum, Brown, they he, again, had a really good game. Not much to say about the Celtics. They kind of just did what I thought they would do, and what they did in that first game. Going lastly, our last game that we'll talk about, we have the Nuggets and Warriors. The Nuggets actually ended up winning by 5 points. And, in the second quarter, I believe second quarter or third, ESPN actually cut out, so I had to go to my local broadcasting because I do live in the Bay Area, so I was able to have a secondary stream of this game. But I missed that second quarter. But the Nuggets had a 20-point lead, and they only ended up winning by 5. So yeah, I'm also a Nuggets fan, so that makes me really angry that happened because they were playing really well. They really were. KCP had an incredible game. 17 points, 3 for 6 from 3, 7 for 14 from the field. He was hitting a lot of nice mid-range shots. He just looked really quick. Jokic had a triple-double, 26, 12, and 10. MPJ had 17 points, 5 for 10 from 3. Bruce Brown, 20 points, 3 for 4 from 3. Aaron Gordon didn't really have too much of a good offensive game, at least. He had 10 points, 0 for 6 from 3. Bones Hyland. I had questions about Bones Hyland taking over the keys of the bench. I really liked Monte Morris, but later on in the offseason, I gained more trust just based off what I was seeing, from the reports going around. He ended up the game with 14 points, really surgical with his passing, had 5 assists off the bench. And Jeff Green, the old man, had 10 points, 2 for 2 from 3. He's always just going to be really solid. So I love Jeff Green on that team. And DeAndre Jordan, I hated this pickup. In my opinion, I'm not going to change my opinion quite yet, but I don't think DeAndre Jordan should be an NBA player. But he had a good game. He had 9 points, 5 rebounds. He went 4 for 4 from the field. So, that's good. It gives the Nuggets a different dynamic. I understand the reasoning behind having him on this team because you want someone who doesn't do the exact same stuff as Jokic, which was kind of a big reason why they didn't end up re-signing DeMarcus Cousins, because they just felt like he brought too much of the same and they wanted, more variety in their offense, which makes sense to me. But I would much rather have DeMarcus Cousins on this team. But shout out to DeAndre Jordan for actually, performing pretty well. But that fourth quarter was it was sad. An interesting thing to consider is that with 20 seconds left in that game, the Nuggets were up 5, and Draymond Green was bringing up the ball. I don't believe the Warriors had a timeout. And if they did, they had one, but they still brought up the ball because they had 20 seconds left. And the Nuggets actually ended up fouling Draymond and force him to shoot 2 free throws instead of, maybe letting the Warriors get off a 3. And, at the time, it seemed like a good idea, just because the Warriors were just coming back. And it just felt like if you gave them a 3, they were probably going to make it. So you would rather have, a 70% free throw shooter and a guy who doesn't necessarily shoot very well from the line, in clutch situations anyway. And Draymond Green, you would much rather have him shoot 2 and just live with him making the 2, which is what ended up happening. And then, Bones Hyland got trapped in the corner. He threw the ball to Jokic, but Jordan Poole was there to steal it. And shout out to my boy Nikola Jokic he's the best quarterback in Denver. Who's Russell Wilson? I don't know. It's Jokic. Jokic should be the Denver Broncos quarterback. That's about as much NFL football you'll get out of me. I don't really watch that. But yeah, Jokic has a great heads-up play. He grabs the ball and just immediately chucks it down court to Bruce Brown, who's just kind of cherry-picking on the other side. And he ends up dunking the ball, and that pretty much seals the game for the Nuggets there. But even with like a minute left, I believe the Nuggets were up 11. It should not have gotten to the point that it did. But I'm just happy they got the W because the Nuggets had a really bad loss against the Jazz, a team who's trying to lose to get Victor. So that really pissed me off. But happy they ended up winning this game against an actual good team. Draymond and Clay, again, didn't really play all too much, but they were still really, playing well in the minutes that they did play. And the Nuggets also didn't have Jamal Murray in that game. So I think that's a huge W for them as well. Win as many games as you can, especially when you are undermanned. Like if you have opportunities to win when you don't have a full healthy team, like that's just going to make you a better team overall. So that's all I really have to say about the Nuggets and Warriors game. And those are all the games that I have been watching since the start of the season. Let me know what y'all think in the comments below. Let me know if I got any takes wrong. Let me know if I may be overreacting or underreacting to certain things that I've seen. Shout out to the Pelicans. I cannot wait to see a Pelicans game. I believe they play today. The day I'm recording this, I don't remember who they're playing, but I do want to watch the Pelicans because they have been absolutely really good on offense. And from what I've heard, defensively, they haven't been all too great. But if they're going to be that good offensively, then it doesn't really matter. Where are the Pelicans? Did they actually not play today? Am I bugging? Oh no, I was gonna watch the Celtics Magic game because I want to watch Paulo. So that'll be a fun one. So I'll definitely talk about that one in the next podcast as well. The Pelicans play on Sunday, but they play the Jazz. I don't want to watch the Jazz. No one wants to watch the Jazz. I don't know. Maybe I'll watch the Jazz because they're 2-0. We'll see who gets their first loss because the Pelicans and Jazz are both undefeated currently. But anyway, that's all I have for this podcast. If you guys enjoyed, make sure you guys like it. Leave a good comment. If you're watching on YouTube, make sure you guys sub to the channel. Trying to grow this as much as possible. Maybe 50 subscribers by the end of the year. That's probably the goal right there. So make sure you guys sub. I would appreciate it a lot. Yeah, that's it for me. Catch you guys next week. Peace out.